So today I'm going to do a tutorial showing you how to create these beautiful little door plates. This is not my original idea. I actually got the idea from Tammy at sscrafter1. And Tammy, I want to thank you very much for allowing me to do this tutorial. So you can see I've got a couple of sizes here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the smaller one, and then I will give you dimensions and everything for the larger one as well. So the first thing that I start with is this is a little piece of medium weight chipboard, and it's cut to 3/4 of an inch by 2 1/4 inches. And then I wrap it with this aluminum foil tape. Once I've got the ends folded over, I actually cut at an angle here, and I cut from the corner on the chipboard down to the edge of where that tape was folded over. So I do that on all 4 corners. And I just fold the sides over. And you don't have to worry about these creases because we end up embossing the plate. If you don't want to emboss the plate and want it just smooth, you can take a bone folder, popsicle stick, ruler, and just smooth it out, and it usually smooths out pretty easily. Okay, now before I emboss this, I'm going to mark the placement of my knob and the keyhole. So usually I start by just drawing a line vertically down the center of my door plate here. That does not look very even. Here we go. And then I mark the placement of the knob at the top and the center of the circle on the keyhole. So the knob I put 3/4 of an inch down from the top. And the keyhole I actually put 11/16 from the bottom. Oops, sorry guys. So for the keyhole, I've actually got this slotted punch that I use, and it actually lines up perfectly with the center of this piece of chipboard, which was just fluke. And what I do is I actually line it up so the top of the slot will be approximately at the top of the hole, which is going to be about 3/16 of an inch. So punch that through. And I found that punching the slot first makes it easier to center the hole. So now I use my big bite, and I use this 3/16 of an inch. That's a little bit off center, but that's okay. Then I mark the placement of the doorknob just by putting my pick through it, punching a hole. Just makes it easier for me to place the knob. Then I emboss it, and I actually have chosen the Sizzix Damask embossing folder, and I believe this is a Tim Holtz. So make sure that you know what design you want up. I actually want the damask pattern to be raised, So I'm going to center this on here and run it through my embossing machine. So there we are, it's all embossed. So the next thing I do is I actually glue the corners onto the ends of the door plate, and I position them as far down as possible just so that I have some area to glue to. So I would position them about there, so you can see the corner of the chipboard is right here on that corner. And I actually use this, it's called Gluzik. It's an industrial strength glue, so E6000 would also work. And I just apply it with a popsicle stick. And I usually don't worry too much about glue coming out because it's clear. And I end up painting or alcohol inking or my door plates. I don't leave them a bright silver. Okay, so we are halfway there, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to allow this glue to dry for a few minutes and then come back and finish showing you how I finish off the door plates. Okay, so I'm back and the glue is dried, and now what I do before I attach the knob is I actually alter the finish of this. You can leave it bright silver if you like and skip this step. However, I like to grunge it up a bit. So this larger one, I actually used alcohol inks, and I used the Ranger alcohol inks. So I've got pitch black, stone washed, and slate with some silver mixative on this one. And after I alcohol inked it, I actually put some light antique white acrylic paint over top and then wiped it off with a cloth. This one here, I did something similar. I used alcohol inks again for the base, and this is my favorite color combination. I used espresso, ginger, and caramel with some gold mixative. And it's really important that you actually let the alcohol ink dry for a short period of time. When I added the paint to this one, I actually rubbed some of the alcohol ink off, so the finish didn't turn out quite as nice as on this one, because when I finished alcohol inking this one, I actually used some black paint, and I used the Adirondack dabber paint on it and wiped it off, and I think it turned out much nicer. So this one I'm going to do a little bit differently. I am going to use some paint, and then what I'm going to do is use some rub and buff. I'm going to use a combination of antique white and antique gold rub and buff on this. So okay, now that I'm done painting this, I'm just going to let it dry for a couple of minutes. Once it's dry, I'll come back and we'll add some rub and buff and see how it turns out. Okay, so now the paint is dry. I'm going to start, I'm thinking I want the gold to be on top, but so I'm going to start with this white. This is a new tube to me. Looks like there's a bit of oil collected on the top. That's okay. And I'm just going to lightly go over the high spots just to bring out that design that we embossed on it. And I also like to go around the edges a little bit. So I think that's enough white. I'm going to add a little bit of gold. There. Now all we need to do is add the knob, and there's a variety of things you can do with a knob. On this one I actually just glued, this is a little bead cap from my stash, and this is a black bead, and I just put a gold head pin through the hole in the bead just to cover that hole and make it look a little bit finished off. This larger one, you can see I have this large clear bead, but I've also used a couple of the Wild Orchid Crafts bead caps. So for this one, I'm actually going to use the same bead cap that I used on this one here for my stash. And then I'm going to take two of these flat back pearls. These are 12 millimeters in diameter, and they've got the flower shape to them. So first off, and I'm just going to continue using my industrial strength glue. You can also use glossy accents here if you want to. Oops, that didn't work very well. And I'm going to stick these guys together. And it's kind of difficult for me to see where that hole is, so I'm just going to go through with my paper piercer again so I can pick up where that location is. Glue this guy on there. Stuff is almost like a wet glue gun. It's very stringy, but it's also very easy to clean up afterwards. There, so there we go. We have, it's not quite straight. There we have our mini door plate. Okay, so now I promised I would tell you the dimensions for this larger door plate. So what I did was I used a piece of chipboard that was 1 3/8 inches wide by 4 1/8 inches long. On the back, again, I marked a line right down the center, and I put the knob at 1 3/8 inches down from the top, and the keyhole is centered 1 1/2 inches up from the bottom. And for the keyhole, what I did was I actually punched out this little template using this alterations die. It's from the lock here, and I put this on here, centered the hole over this crosshairs there, and traced it. And then I took just a standard 1/4 inch hole punch and punched the hole out, and the rest of it I actually did with a really small craft knife. I've got one of these little tiny knives, I don't know what you want to call it, but I used that to cut the rest of the keyhole out with. And I think I used just an 1/8 inch hole punch just for that bottom little piece there, just to finish the bottom of the keyhole off. So that's how I did that one. So if you guys want more ideas, please go check out Tammy's video, and I'll put a link to her video in the description box below. She gives you other ideas of how to make these little door plates. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Have a great day.